One of our featured poems today asks this fierce question: how shall the heart be reconciled to its feast of losses? How shall the heart be reconciled to its feast of losses? That is our question today, which gives rise to the title of this episode, Letting Go Without Giving Up. And that means, of course, that you're listening to Poetry, Gossip, and the Pursuit of Pleasure with Dale Byron. That's me, your host. And in this podcast, we explore creative and practical ways poetry can help us in our everyday lives with little pockets of joy, sanity, and of course, connectedness. Now, we're going to jump right into the deep end of the pool with a poem by Ada Limon today. However, I just want to say, can we let go more often? That's really the question. Can we let go more often, let things be, not in resignation, but desiring to build, I should say, the kind of resiliency to allow us to come back even stronger? Because I think that's the whole notion of this question. Can we let go without giving up? So again, the first poem, and it is entitled, it's a perfect poem for the podcast, I think, today. It's called Instructions on Not Giving Up, again, by Ada Limon. And I'll tell you a little more about the poet in just a moment. The poem goes like this: Instructions on Not Giving Up. More than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crab apple tree, more than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crab apple tree, more than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs shoving their cotton candy colored blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains. It's the greening of the trees that really gets to me. When all the shock of white and taffy, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with confetti, the confetti of aftermath, the leaves come. Patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us. Growing over whatever winter did to us. A return to the strange idea of continuous living despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then, I'll take it. The tree seems to say, a new slick leaf unfurling like a fist to an open palm. I'll take it all. Instructions on Not Giving Up by Ada Limon. I just love the sounds of these words. More than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crabapple tree, more than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs shoving their cotton candy colored blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains. It's the greening of the trees that really gets to me. When all the shock of white and taffy, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with the confetti of aftermath, the leaves come. Patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us. A return to the strange idea of continuous living despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then, I'll take it. The tree seems to say, a new slick leaf unfurling like a fist to an open palm. I'll take it all. Now again, when I started imagining this idea of how do we let go without giving up, how do we give ourselves a break in and among the things that we feel so passionate about, whether that be political, whether that be ecological concerns, which many of us have these days. But can we give ourselves a kind of break by letting go, by not clenching so hard all the time, or actually not clenching so hard anytime, because when we clench down, if you try that right now, if you clench, your arm is not powerful. Your arm is powerful when it's limber. One of the things I learned after studying Aikido for many years, it is the limber arm that is the most powerful and ready to respond in the way it needs to. Now, I should say that Ada Limon was born in 1976 in Sonoma, California, not very far from where I am actually standing and recording this, near San Francisco. She became the 24th Poet Laureate of the United States in July of last year, July of 2022. An amazing, incredibly talented poet, an amazing human being, as a matter of fact. So again, this idea of, can we let go more often? Can we let go more often, even inside the passions that we have, when we feel incredibly passionate about a cause or a project that we're working on? Can we let things be? Not, as I said before, in resignation, like giving up, like just, being defeated, not that, but desiring to build the kind of resiliency that allows us to come back even stronger. It's a way of saying that when we have harmony inside, I've talked about that before, the three states: harmony inside, harmony with others, and harmony with the great other, or the natural world. It is that harmony that allows us to be the most effective, the most useful, the most helpful to ourselves and the causes we feel most passionate about, and to others and to the world. And, I said, my note says, can we not fret and move our arms so much? Can we practice accepting what is, develop a taste for reality, an acquired taste often? Can we take it all in, its joys, griefs, errors, delights, hurts, and amazements? Can we take it all in? Just like the poet says at the end, I'll take it all. Can we do that? I'll take it all, which means that we must let go sometimes, let go of what is already happening. Okay, so let's keep cooking. Our theme, of course, this letting go without giving up, this business of creating poetry, stories, poems are just stories without the boring parts, that allow us to cultivate a kind of harmony, a kind of equanimity, even inside the most difficult tasks, the most difficult things we're doing. This, I think, becomes even more important, this harmony within, because all the other things we do, our effectiveness starts there. Okay, let's do a poem now, which I think fits, called The Layers by Stanley Kunitz. And amazing poet. I'll tell you a little more about him in just a second, but let's do the poem first, okay? The Layers. I have walked, first line, I have walked through many lives, some of them my own, and I am not who I was, though some principle of being abides, from which I struggle not to stray. When I look behind, as I am compelled to look before I gather strength to proceed on my journey, I see the milestones dwindling toward the horizon and the slow fires trailing from the abandoned campsites. Wonderful images. Over which scavenger angels wheel on heavy wings. Oh, I have made myself a tribe out of my true affections, and my tribe is scattered. How shall the heart, here's the line, how shall the heart be reconciled to its feast of losses? That's our question in this poem. How shall the heart be reconciled to its feet of losses? In a rising wind, the manic dust of my friends, those who fell along the way, bitterly stings my face. Yes, yes, I turn, exulting somewhat, and with my will intact to go wherever I need to go, and every stone on the road precious to me, precious to me. In my darkest night, precious to me. In my darkest night, when the moon was covered and I roamed through wreckage, a nimbus clouded voice directed me. Live in the layers, not on the litter. Live in the layers, not on the litter, though I lack the art to decipher it. No doubt, the next chapter in my book of transformations is already written. I am not done with my changes. There's such a beautiful meeting of so many things in that poem, but certainly it is a great acceptance. It is a letting go of this idea that we can control everything on our path, this letting go of the idea that we are in control, and this idea that we can actually celebrate and feel gratitude, even for the feast of losses that the heart must endure and that the heart must reconcile. So he says, in my darkest night, when the moon was covered and I roamed through wreckage, we get the image there of a most difficult situation. In my darkest night, when the moon was covered, couldn't even see any light from the moon, and I roamed through wreckage. A nimbus clouded voice directed me. Live in the layers. Live in the layers, not on the litter. Though I lack the art, says the speaker in the poem, though I lack the art to decipher it, no doubt the next chapter in my book of transformations is already written. I am not done with my changes. What is so interesting to me is that while this poem sort of mingles the joys and the amazements and the griefs and the hurts and the difficulties all together, which is the way a life shows up, which if there's a cause in your life, particularly around ecological concerns, particularly around political concerns, you know the complexity of that and how it can wear us down. And if we become overly identified with being in control, overly identified with some particular outcome, then we shut ourselves down. We throw ourselves into an incredibly stressful situation, and we shut ourselves down to the moment by moment unfolding, which being helpful and useful in any cause we have passion for, no matter how big or small. To be useful, we must be able to let go. We must be able to build that harmony within so that we can then have harmony with others and harmony with the natural world. Now, I should mention that Stanley Kunitz died on May 4. Oh, this was actually from a write-up in the paper when he died. He lived from 1905 to 2006. So he hasn't been off this plane very long. But isn't it interesting? You look at that and you go, yes, it's true. He lived 101 years. So he had quite a long life. At the age of 101, he was prized by fellow poets as a rare symbol of health and happiness in an art often dominated by depression. At least that's a lot of poets, right? And this despite the fact that he experienced many hardships in his life. So Stanley Kunitz was amazing poet, an amazing poet. The layers. Okay. So let's keep cooking. Let's keep cooking. We're going to go to a poet now who's a British poet, who was a British poet, died in 1985, Philip Larkin. And it's a very short poem, and it's called The Trees, but I think it fits today. You know, in our theme, letting go. How can we let go? You know, and without giving up. Yeah. The trees. The trees are coming into leaf. Interesting how we have a lot of trees in our poems today. The trees are coming into leaf, like something almost being said. The recent buds relax and spread. Their greenness is a kind of grief. Their greenness is a kind of grief. Is it that they are born again and we grow old? No, 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 they die too. Their yearly trick of looking new is written down in rings of grain. Yet, still, the unresting castles thresh in full grown thickness every May, every May. Last year is dead, they seem to say. Last year is dead, they seem to say. Begin afresh, afresh, afresh. Yet still the unresting castles thresh in full grown thickness every May. Last year is dead, they seem to say. Begin afresh, afresh, afresh. Ah. So it's a beautiful poem. And I was thinking just the opposite. What is the opposite of letting go? It's being, as we were just talking about, it's being identified with our thoughts, with our positions, with our opinions. And it doesn't mean that our thoughts aren't important and our positions and our opinions. It doesn't mean that they're not important. It's just that when we become overly identified, when there's no distance, we have no altitude, would be another word, from our positions and opinions and our thoughts, fleeting as they are. When we have no distance between that, we can suffer greatly because we have no context and no ability to let go so we can come back even stronger. I said that in this way, we destroy any chance for harmony, been talking about that, and centeredness inside with others and with the greater context of the world. In effect, we become quite ineffective in addition to being personally anxious and hurt and often grievously disappointed. So be wise, my note says, go with the flow. You know, I studied, I've mentioned this on this podcast, I studied the martial art of Aikido for many, many years. And the idea was not just to be able to, of course, the idea of Aikido was how do you reduce violence? How do you intercede in violence in such a way that the person who is out of control or is, perpetrating the violence, they don't get hurt and you don't get hurt, but the situation is taken care of. And easier to say than do, but the idea, if you take that off the mat into everyday life, is a very powerful idea about how we connect with other human beings, even when they're going through a very difficult time, even when their intention in the short term is to hurt us. that we have a way of keeping our calm and center and equanimity, and we can let go of that scene and actually take care of things much better. I used to say that the idea of Aikido is I will not run and I will not fight. Now, it's again, it's that's a practice, that's a life practice, but it's very, very powerful, and it's a kind of letting go of the enemy image in our mind and being able to deal with the human being that may be in a very difficult time, but how can we deal with that so that they do not get hurt, we do not get hurt, and nothing is destroyed? Yeah. Philip Larkin was born in 22, died in 1985. I said he was a British poet. They call him England's other poet laureate. Indeed, when the position of laureate became vacant in 1984, just before a year before he died, many poets and critics favored Larkin's appointment, but it says Larkin preferred to avoid the limelight. You know, he actually wrote not that his volume of poems was rather small, but in that small volume, he did amazing things. Okay, let's keep cooking. Let's change gears, come back to this side of the Atlantic Ocean to a poet named Denise Levertov. Denise Levertov, she wrote a very short poem called Of Being, and I think it's appropriate. Of being. I know this happiness is provisional. The looming presences, great suffering, great fear, withdraw only into peripheral vision. But ineluctable, this shimmering of wind in the blue leaves, this flood of stillness, widening the lake of sky, this need to dance, this need to kneel, this mystery. Ineluctable, this shimmering of wind in the blue leaves, this flood of stillness, widening the lake of sky, this need to dance, this need to kneel, this mystery. Again, this theme of being able to let go in a wise way so that we're able to come back. My note for this poem says, so one day you are winning at the cause for which you have great passion, and this makes you extremely happy. But then the outside world implodes, and all of a sudden things are going badly. And so again, if we're not able to let go, if we are too or fully identified, there's no distance between us and our identity as the great heroic achiever in a particular cause. That burns us out. That creates a condition where often, I don't know if you've noticed this, but often people are not able to come back. Their resiliency is not there, and they do end up giving up in just pure exhaustion oftentimes. So it is important, this business of letting go, of having a way to center ourselves, to have harmony within, so we can have harmony with others, and then in turn, harmony with the great other or the natural world. Letting go, I said, can be so wise and has nothing to do with giving up. Denise Levertov lived from 1923 to 1997, created a highly regarded body of poetry that reflected her beliefs as an artist and humanist. Her work embraced a wide variety of genres and themes, including nature, lyrics, love poems, protest poetry, and poetry inspired by her religious faith. Okay, we are close. We're headed to the barn, as I always like to say when we get to the last poem. But again, remember this letting go without giving up. I will not fight and I will not run. I will stand in the fire with the passion for whatever it is you have passion for and that you are working toward. So this last poem is by a very famous poet. In fact, I think the greatest selling poet in the world, Rumi. This particular, the translation for this one was done by Coleman Barks, who did a lot of Rumi translations. And this, of course, is a most memorable poem about letting go without giving up. The Guest House goes like this. This being human is a guest house. This being human is a guest house, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be cleaning you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent. Each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows, you know those days? A crowd of sorrows that show up on our doorstep, who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. In this poem, my note says, in my thought, Rumi says, welcome it, welcome it, cling, do not cling, but welcome. Do not cling to the idea that no sorrows are supposed to occur. Don't cling to the idea that that somehow or another we can arrange the external world and keep it just right. Fix it. In fact, I used to love to say, or it occurs to me that when we fix something, we use that language. When we fix something, we kill it. If it's living, we kill it. Now I understand how that term is normally used, but just think about it. If to fix something, certainly to fix a human being, is to place them in a constant state so they don't move, so they're no longer organic, living. So to fix it is to kill it. Let it all come to us, says Rumi, even the painful experiences, as they are all opportunities for growth and learning. Rumi reminds us that all things are passing, and we should not attach to any one experience, but instead let it pass through us like a guest in a house. By doing so, we can cultivate a sense of grace, equanimity, and acceptance, and be open to whatever new delights life has in store for us. Rumi also said in a different piece, he said, and don't think the garden loses its ecstasy in winter. It's quiet, but the roots are down there riotous. I love it. I think that's another Coleman Barks translation. And the last note I made for myself for today, and this letting go will not only allow us to not give up, or this kind of letting go that we're talking about, but may well help us be more skilled, more helpful, and effective without all the stress and strain and trying. A recipe, that strain and trying, in other words, is a recipe for bust, burnout, and despair. And there's no time for bust, burnout, and despair. These times are too challenging, too inviting, too many paradoxical situations that we have to address. There's oftentimes no solution, because these are predicaments, not just simple problems. Predicaments are very complex, and they require us to show up in a way where we are at our best. And we are at our best when we have harmony within, with others, and with the great other. We are at our best when we are not overly identified with any one particular role or an opinion or that sort of thing. We are able to meet the world each moment, and we are able to be far more effective, actually have fun, and not be so stressed out, because we won't get much of anything important done if we are stressed and, just all these things we've been talking about. If we can't let go and at the same time not give up. Okay. That's a wrap. That is a wrap. And as always, if you found any of this inspiring, or if you learned something, then please do a like, refer it to others. That would be great. That gets the word out, and I'm very interested for people who love poetry, who appreciate poetry, who poetry is a healing and inspiring power in their lives. I'm interested in them having more of it. Okay. Until next time, as I like to always say, until next time and next poems, take good care of yourself.